Good afternoon. My name is Octavia Nasr. I want to welcome you to this session. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I want to tell you from the beginning, before I introduce my guests, I want to tell you that we want to hear from you. And I want this to be the first message that this panel sends to you. We will be speaking. You will be hearing from the panelists. Each one of them has a great message to share with us, lots of ideas, years of experience in policy, in diplomacy, in markets, and leadership. But more importantly, we're here to talk to you. So we want this session to be engaging. We want it to be interesting. We want you to leave here today a little richer than you walked in. And we know that all of us are going to leave here today richer just by your presence and your energy. Today, we live in a world that is continuously changing and that is continuously challenged at all levels. Powers are shifting. You must feel it. You must feel it in your homes. You must feel it in your schools, in your jobs, in the streets, in the news, in the media. You must feel it everywhere. And if you're questioning where the power is shifting and why, then join the club. I myself spent my life in journalism. So I spent my life asking questions. And today, I think I have more questions than ever before in my life. Where is the power shifting and why is it shifting? And especially when we talk about Western powers, you know, we talk about an Arab Spring or an Arab uprising or an Arab revolution, depending on the country and on the territory. We call it different names. But think about it for a second and think about the Western power over all these countries and territories and the Western influence on all these powers, on those territories and lands and countries. Think about that for a second. As you listen to us and as you challenge us and ask us questions, how strong is this influence today in comparison to 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and so forth? And this is what I want us to think about today, where the power is, where we're going, and our role as former leaders and as current players. Because each one of us is a player in their own field. Us here on the podium and you on the ground. So let me introduce my great guests, starting with Stejpan Mesic, who served as the former president of the Republic of Croatia, sitting right here next to me on my left. Then Cyril Svoboda, former deputy prime minister and minister of foreign affairs, and also Interior Affairs at some point, right? From the Czech Republic. Rody, European Member of Parliament from Greece. She's also the former Vice President of the European Parliament. And then Berty Ahern, of course, former Prime Minister of Ireland. All of them are people that you've seen on the news, people that made a difference in their own countries and in their own region, as well as the Middle East. What we're going to do, as I said, I want you to start thinking about questions and let me know if you have questions. And we're going to go to you and take a few questions and come back here and answer them. But as we start this conversation, which I'm hoping is going to be extremely rich today, I'm going to get my guests to answer one question that is on my mind, and I have a feeling it's on your mind as well. We hear about a huge financial crisis. And as I was saying earlier, I think people, ordinary citizens of this world, feel it in their homes, schools, businesses, and we certainly feel it in our pockets. And I want you, as leaders, to tell me about this crisis. How big is it? How much worried should we be? How does it affect our daily life? And where we are going from here? These are too many questions. I don't want you to answer all of them. I just want you to tell me your honest opinion and your honest assessment as we start this conversation. And I'm going to start with you, Berty.
Thank you very much. And can I say, first of all, I want to thank the Institute for the opportunity of being here and to share at this time with us. I think the financial crisis, really it's the financial crisis of 2008. We're 5 years into it now. It's created enormous problems in my country. It's created enormous problems in several European countries. It's created enormous problems right around the world. It's brought us back, I think, because of the collapse in the financial markets, the way that that's affected first banks, the way it affected businesses, the way it affected people more than anything else, the huge unemployment rates, the devastation that it's caused to the lives of people, the dreams that people had and the beliefs that they had in where they were going, was all hauled back in a few weeks in 2008. I'm not a person who believes that it all happened because Lehman's collapsed. It was triggered by Lehman's and AIG a few days later. But that exposed vulnerabilities in the whole capitalist financial system. The banking crisis led to the bailouts in individual countries, more or less different in different places, but the same issue. And of course, that's continued on and that's spiraled across the world. I was in China recently and they said within a few months of that, 10 million jobs were lost, and China weren't directly involved in a lot of these issues. But it still affected them. In Singapore, which was probably the #1 globalized economy in the world, it was plus 20 and it ended up -9. And it did nothing wrong in their view. So all of these things have affected people. It's affected a lot of the young people in this audience. It's affected their aspirations and their ambitions for the future. And of course, I think the challenge, and it is your question, is to challenge how do we get that right? How do we deal with the issues that created it, whether it was a sovereign debt crisis, whether it was a banking crisis, whether it was a business crisis, and how we can correct that. And I think this is something that's taxing the minds of everybody. How later on, perhaps I'll give you 5 or 6 of the points that I believe are crucial that we have to do. But I think more than anything else, it does show, and this is to what you said at the start, it does show the interconnections between the whole world. We are all connected. We might have different languages, we might have different perspectives on the world, we might look on different issues as being our #1 issue. Lots of the issues I would have spent my life in, like the problems of conflict in Northern Ireland. But wherever you come from, international, domestic financial issues relate to us all. And I think what in the position of authority and power in the leaders of today, it's to try to find resolutions that can try and correct these issues, that we can move forward in a more peaceful world, and remembering that the main issue is to try and make the standard and quality of life better for people.
Wonderful. Rody, I want you to go next, and if you can focus a little bit. I mean, we hear about the financial crisis, the global crisis, but each country has its own crisis. And each region has its own crisis, and each continent has its own crisis. That's why in the beginning I started by saying, it seems to me that I have more answers than I ever had before. I'm trying to wrap my head around what's going on. In Greece, for example, is it the worst time for Greece, you would say?
Bon, merci madame. Tout d'abord, permettez-moi de vous dire comment je me réjouis de me retrouver parmi vous aujourd'hui. La question que vous nous avez adressée, c'est une question qui a gagné en importance, en signification après la crise. Et permettez-moi de partager avec vous des constatations. Tout d'abord, on a vu durant la crise et après la crise que les marchés financiers ont gagné en importance parce qu'ils ont fait l'agenda de notre politique. Nous avons vu ce qui s'est passé dans le monde après la crise des subprimes aux États-Unis. Nous avons vu, prenons un pays voisin, la bulle immobilière en Espagne, les marchés étaient laissés faire, considérés par des institutions politiques et économiques comme des générateurs de croissance et d'emploi. Deuxième constatation, on a vu que dans notre effort de faire face aux conséquences de la crise, les marchés ont couru plus vite. Prenons comme exemple notre Union européenne et l'eurozone que nous partageons. Nous allons voir que les réponses des institutions européennes étaient plus lentes, étaient une réaction à l'action déjà des marchés financiers. Les marchés attaquaient l'eurozone, les maillons faibles, particulièrement mon pays, et l'eurozone, les institutions, c'est-à-dire politiques, économiques, cherchaient une solution à répondre. Deuxième constatation, votre question s'adresse, je pense que c'est une question qui mérite d'analyse et d'attention, s'adresse au niveau national et au niveau international, parce que comme le Premier ministre vient de dire, dans le monde globalisé aujourd'hui, les économies sont interconnectées. Alors nous constatons qu'il fallait une coopération économique et politique, même internationale, même dépasse le niveau des institutions et des capacités des institutions européennes, une stratégie économique, monétaire et politique internationale pour faire face aux problèmes de l'Irlande, de la Grèce, etc. Et là, nous devons nous demander si le G20 peut jouer son rôle. Parce que nous voyons très bien que les décisions arrêtées lors des sommets G20 n'ont pas une implantation facile et immédiate et fidèle, car il y a un antagonisme économique parmi les pays aujourd'hui, parmi les grandes puissances, qui entravent l'application des mécanismes d'équilibre. La régulation des marchés financiers, la coopération monétaire, l'élimination des paradis fiscaux, tout le monde dit que c'est très bien, mais l'implantation, l'application quand même n'est pas efficace. Alors, vu la responsabilité d'une sincérité et d'une détermination au niveau international pour faire face aux problèmes de l'équilibre mondial avec toutes les conséquences que ça peut avoir et des capacités des pays de faire face eux aussi. Ils ont besoin, les auspices, l'umbrella de la protection de la coopération internationale. Et je finis, madame. Il y a un autre paramètre qui entre en discussion, le paramètre des sociétés. On voit aujourd'hui que les mesures appliquées pour faire face aux conséquences de la crise, qui est surtout issue de la non-coordination de l'équilibre international, a des répercussions sur la stabilité non seulement politique, mais sociale aussi. Les sociétés, la société, les individus entrent en jeu avec des hypothèses d'un rôle qui va, on ne sait pas s'il va déstabiliser le status quo ou va canaliser vers des solutions qui sont des solutions en faveur de l'équilibre, de commerce équitable, de la fair concurrence. Nous sommes devant un nouveau défi où l'homme, et là la responsabilité des citoyens, entre en jeu. Merci.
Thank you. I'm going to skip over you, Cyril, for a second and come back to you for a closing. To hear the Croatian perspective on all this. And I want to tell the audience to please use their headsets because Mr. Mesic will be speaking in Croatian. So this is a good time to use your headsets if you need them, unless you're fluent in Croatian. Is everybody fluent in Croatian? Looks like it. All right. I think, should we wait a little bit until people get some headsets? Okay, hurry up. Because we want to make sure that we don't miss. In the meantime, most everybody is getting headsets. In the meantime, let me go to you, Cyril, in this case, and get your perspective. I mean, obviously, I mean, we're hearing some interesting views here and opinions. And sometimes these opinions are a little bit hard for the layman to understand. Someone like me, I mean, I want people to simplify it for me. And you seem to be really good at simplifying huge problems and making them sound easy to grasp and understand. Put it in terms of not just Europe, make it a little bit larger for us, and I mean, I know Mr. Ahern spoke about, you know, it globally, and also we heard about, you know, the European aspect of it, and also that this is an international issue. But try to put it together for me and for the audience as far as the Middle East is concerned. How can this crisis, this global crisis, how can it affect the Middle East? Not just any Middle East, the Middle East that's going through its own transformation and its own leadership crisis and its own revolutions and uprisings and so forth. These are not normal times, are they?
Good. Thank you so much for inviting me. So maybe because I'm a simple person, so I need to simplify everything. The problem is, in my view, that the EU and the Euro-Atlantic partnership is losing their positions. So we are losing too much because something happened. The world has been changed dramatically. Not only the emancipation of the Islamic countries, Arab Spring, war in Syria, and Africa. Yesterday, we listened how Africa is a promising continent. In my view, the problem is that Europe and the United States, they still believe that they are a dominant power, but it is not true. The world has been changed because the world is interconnected, it has been said. You know, my secretary, when she started her job, he opened the computer and she wrote, hi, I start my job by drinking coffee. And I said, why do you type such a stupid sentence? And she said, I have on Facebook 1,000 of friends. And I said, look, Lucka, when you are in the hospital, how many people will go to see you, come to see you and to visit you? No one. So the world is interconnected. The modern means they shorten the distance, but does not create closeness, does not create alliance. And we need the new responsibility. And the new responsibility is very, very important because, you know, EU, in my view, is an illusion. This illusion that EU is still ruling or governing the global scene. But the problem is that the international instruments we have today came into the existence after the Second World War. And when we take into consideration NATO or Security Council, so we see that it is not fair. Why just 5 countries? Just 5 countries, because they defeated the Nazi Germany, why just 5 countries are power enough to decide what is legal or not, or to give legitimacy or legality for any engagement? Why not to invite other countries in the decision making? So, speaking about the future, I am skeptical because the only way we will see it will be the time of ad hoc coalitions. And the responsibility for the EU and for United States is to respect the substance of the Charter, the UN Charter, and to respect the human rights and to respect democracy. But if we stick with the instruments which came into the existence in the totally different time, so we will lose everything. So there's a need of more flexibility.
Thank you very much. I think now we're ready for the Croatian perspective from Mr. Mesic.
Ja smatram da se radi ipak o jednoj globalnoj krizi. Radi se o tome da su manipulacije počele onda kada je dolar postao svjetska valuta i kada je on odvojen od realne privrede. Dakle, kada je financijski sektor odvojen od realne privrede. Nastala je jedna velika razlika. Ako gledate da je 60-ih godina u Sjedinjenim Američkim Državama dohodak bio 1:7. Sad je 1:15. Ako gledate gdje je uzrok, uzrok je u neoliberalnom kapitalizmu. Jer to je ono što je započelo politikom Reagana i politikom gospođe Thatcher. Mi sada vidimo te rezultate. Ako je prije 10 godina svjetski bruto dohodak iznosio otprilike 50.000 milijardi dolara, a sada je on financijski, dakle ne realno, nego financijski 300 milijardi eura. Koja je razlika između realne privrede i financijskog sektora? Ogromna. To je jedan veliki balon koji se mora ispuhati da bi se spojio zajedno sa realnom privredom. Kako to postići? Očito da moraju na nivou Ujedinjenih nacija postaviti regulatore. Isto je to u Europskoj uniji. Europska unija mora, da se ne desi nova kriza u bilo kojoj drugoj državi, uspostaviti regulatore u financijsku sferu, prije svega u bankarski sektor, dakle u monetarni sektor. Na nivou Unije mora biti regulatori. A isto tako moraju biti u fiskalnoj sferi regulatori. Dok se to ne učini, Europska unija ne može biti sigurna da će izbjeći nove krize. Ali svjetska kriza je evidentna. Ona je globalna i nju ni jedna zemlja sama za sebe ne može riješiti. Bilo je sasvim jasno kada je taj balon puknuo u Americi, kada se tamo odvojio financijski sektor od realne privrede, taj val je morao zahvatiti sve. Morao je zahvatiti i Europu i Aziju i Afriku. Prema tome, mi možemo u svojim zemljama puno toga poduzimati, ali svaka analiza mora pokazati da je kriza globalna. I u tom smislu, što god mi poduzimali, ako se ne shvati dubina krize, teško može bilo koja zemlja efikasno riješiti svoje probleme.
Thank you very much. What's interesting about this group is that you really you all gave us the perspective, based on your experience, and you have unique experiences from where you come from. And I'm not sure how much of that we can apply to the Middle East region, but I want us to at least try. First of all, I want to go back to Mr. Ahern real quick for an overview of what you've heard. I think we've heard some really interesting points, a lot of cooperation, even international cooperation. And then we're talking about each people must take the lead, within their own communities, because the dangers today are not just the financial and the political, but it's also the extremism. And as Mr. Mesic said, it's not just the Islamic extremism we're worried about, but it's the Christian extremism as well. And countries or nations trying to overpower others, or have exclusive decision-making over other cultures and countries. I want you to react briefly to this and tell me, is this even possible? Can we even talk pragmatically about an international cooperation and not fall into the trap of, 1,000 friends on Facebook, but if you're sick, no one shows up to check on you in the hospital?
I don't think it should be simplified. My own long experience is that to try to look at what are problems in one end of the world and to try and give simple solutions. I've always said, with dealing with difficulties and conflicts, as I did throughout my period, that you can learn lessons from one person's experience. To try to replicate it, you would be very foolish. And I think that is applied. And I've always declined trying to say, well, the Irish problem, whether you call them freedom fighters or terrorists, depends on where you are, and it's the same all over the world. But I think to try to replicate these things, but there are lessons. And I think the lessons are that listening to people, understanding people, trying to work with people. My personal opinion is that you have to talk to those that are the problems, the people who cause the conflicts are the people you have to talk to. You have to deal with your enemies, not your friends. People in politics make that mistake a lot of the time. I think it applies domestically as much as it does internationally. And I think this is a challenge. But listening yesterday and today about the African situation, if I can just make this point, because I think yesterday was a good debate, today was a good debate, that I do think in the African context, and to the Middle East to an extent, but the lessons, and just look at the economic things, which, and unfortunately economics does tend to affect a lot of things, not everything, but a lot of things. I think you can learn lessons, and you can certainly take good examples. I mean, a lot of good students here, good bright students. I'm talking to them in the last few days. But if I could just give the economic crisis, now I'm going to say something I didn't do myself, but anyway, in 1873 in the United States, there was a financial crisis that started really because of the difficulties Europe were creating in the Prussian-Franco wars, and that created the huge depression of 1873. And what happened was everyone they borrowed money and they put stocks into railways, not subprime as they did in the recent crisis. In 1928, they put it into property. And so the lessons of history, I think, can be replicated with what has happened in other places. So therefore, to answer your question directly, are there things that can help the conflicts in the Middle East that have happened elsewhere? I believe there are. There's no blueprint that you can just take and say, well, now we can follow that one. But I do think that the lessons of the past and the distant past, which some people like myself didn't fully learn, and I've put my hands up. I mean, if I had read the 1873 paper of economics far more carefully, I might have avoided some of the problems that happened in Ireland. I thought 1928 was the only conflict. So the students here look at 1873 and you would say, how did the Aegis make the mistake in 2008? But there are lessons. There are clear lessons that can be learned by one conflict that can avoid it. But I think, working together, listening to people, not lecturing, not being too big for your boots, not trying to find one size fits all, not being arrogant, not trying to believe you're a superpower when you're a minnow. I mean, I think all of these things are possible in the modern world.
Thank you, but it seems to me that this is not how countries and superpowers are acting. We are saying this, and I think everybody would agree with this, and I think the Middle East, of all places, and the young people of the Middle East are tired of this preaching and the talking down from the superpowers and the meddling in their affairs and deciding which leader should stay and which leader should fall and so forth. And I'm wondering if what we're saying even resonates at a different level, at the level of actual policy making today. I want to go to you, Ms. Kratsa, and ask you, following up on this, and also going back to your presentation, we talk about we need international cooperation. We need neighborhood watch. We need. But how about internally? Why does it seem like countries like Greece or Turkey or the entire Middle East region, as we've seen with the Arab Spring, why are we surprised that people are uprising? Why are we shocked that people are taking to the streets and saying, our economic conditions are terrible, we want new leadership? Why are we not focusing so much internally, and we're always saying, oh, we need something to come to us from the outside. We need to cooperate with the outside world. Internationally, we need assistance. Why are we always surprised? Why are we not paying attention internally to do what we've been saying, basically, what others are saying on this panel, is that the solution comes from within before we even look for help from elsewhere?
Parce que, vous voyez, c'est les conséquences des lacunes que nous avons déjà évoquées. C'est le manque de coopération internationale, des décisions sincères et des leaders déterminés pour faire face vraiment aux problèmes, aux défaillances, et pas arriver à une gestion journalière. Prenons comme exemple la Grèce, dont vous l'avez déjà demandé au début. La Grèce a une monnaie commune avec les autres pays de la zone euro, mais on a constaté qu'il faut être vigilant, discipliné à la gestion budgétaire de notre pays comme des autres pays pour protéger cette monnaie, mais nous avons découvert que l'eurozone n'a pas les moyens pour protéger la monnaie. C'est ce moment-là que la Grèce fait cet effort énorme, jamais vu dans le monde, d'adaptation budgétaire, mais qui souffre dans des conditions sociales que vous connaissez, qu'on a déjà évoquées, et il n'a pas les moyens dans l'eurozone pour accompagner les pays qui font l'effort. Par exemple, nous avons évoqué, les hommes ou les femmes politiques qui partagent cette idée, et la gestion commune de la dette et de l'emprunt international, au niveau de marché international. Par exemple, les euro-obligations, les eurobonds. L'Europe n'a pas ça. Alors, le fardeau de l'adaptation budgétaire dépend des pays, tombe sur les citoyens. Et les citoyens sont dans la rue malgré la discipline et la patience dont fait preuve, parce qu'ils demandent des solutions qui sont nécessaires pour donner les moyens, pour faire accompagner leurs efforts pour les réformes, pour l'adaptation budgétaire. Il y a une distorsion que nous devons quand même voir et avoir le courage de la corriger. Et j'en finis ici, le problème dépasse l'Union européenne elle-même, parce que nous avons vu, mes concitoyens grecs étaient surpris comment le président des États-Unis faisait attention, donnait des conseils, des recommandations pour la crise grecque, la crise d'un petit pays. Alors voilà, c'est la preuve de la interdépendance des économies aujourd'hui et de la responsabilité à tous les niveaux. Niveau national, évidemment, niveau européen, mais niveau international. Parce que la concurrence, la compétition, le manque de conscience commune pour l'intérêt général du peuple empêche les dirigeants de prendre des décisions courageuses pour l'équilibre, pour la justice. Et les Moyen-Orient dont vous parlez souffrent de ça. Parce qu'on ne s'est jamais mis d'accord comment, au moins dans notre partenariat, comme vous avez évoqué, Monsieur le Premier ministre, notre partenariat euro-atlantique, nous ne sommes pas mis d'accord, nous n'avons pas été capables de nous mettre d'accord. Quelle est la solution pour le Moyen-Orient? Comment on va appliquer le droit international? Comment on peut avoir une solution juste, pas deux poids, deux mesures? Comment peser à ce que l'intérêt du peuple est au-dessus des antagonismes géostratégiques et géopolitiques? Même la responsabilité à nous. Il y a une responsabilité aux dirigeants du Moyen-Orient, évidemment. Mais je ne veux pas me dégager de responsabilités que nous portons en tant qu'Union européenne dans notre partenariat avec les États-Unis et au sein de la communauté internationale.
Mr. Svoboda, you've heard all this. I saw you nodding. You're agreeing, disagreeing. I like to get reaction like this. I know where you're going. You're a teacher. You teach young people. And you must hear their frustrations. It seems to me that no country in the world is safe these days. And young people across the globe are dissatisfied. So I'm not sure, sometimes I wonder if any country will be saved from a spring or from some kind of uprising or some kind of dissatisfaction that will take to the streets. But tell me about what we're hearing. Are we just basically talking, or are we seeing, do you think your students, for example, will listen to this, or these students here will listen to this and it makes sense to them, or are they going to feel that they're being deserved again?
So when I am speaking with my students, I stress just 2 points. One is, be courageous and take your life seriously. Don't play artificial game. If you play artificial game, if you are pragmatic, maybe you will be successful. But you don't push the things in the right direction. Take your life seriously and be courageous. One sentence. Second, the most dangerous for the political life is presentism, to be concentrated on the present time, not to lose the next elections, not to be correct to everyone. And if you are afraid that you will lose something, you will definitely lose everything. That's my sentence to my students.
Thank you very much. I want to remind the audience that if you have any questions, let me know. After the next answer, I'm going to turn to you. So if you do I have questions? Let me know now. Okay, good. Anybody else? Okay. Show me now if you have questions. I saw you, and you. Anybody else? I see 4 people with questions, so I got you. Okay. All right, very good. That's wonderful. So if we want to prepare the microphones, who here raised their hand? Okay. The front row here and the front row here. We have 2 people if you want to get the mics ready. And I want to go back to you, Mr. Mesic, and ask you this. I personally like your approach of, each country, each nation, each people need to take matters into their own hands, because this is where change begins. But then we fall into the trap of, what Ms. Kratsa was saying, you want people to be happy and satisfied, but what if the people themselves are asking for a government to be toppled, or they're asking for the politicians to be changed? Then which side do you take? Then who's right and who's wrong? Then who determines who's a rebel and who's the authority? And you know, when you have uprisings, I mean, which ones do you support? Which ones do you go against? Why? It's not really black and white. And you yourself called at some point for cooperation, you know, as an emerging country from the former Yugoslavia. You said that other emerging countries need to get together because we can cooperate economically, politically, socially, and through cooperation, we will find many solutions to our problems. So I want to challenge you on this, because these are two different ideas. One, the cooperation, which we heard, you know, panelists talk about, and we're challenging that, saying, you know, is that really the solution? Shouldn't change come from within? And the other idea that you proposed, the change coming from within. And you are in a position, I mean, your country dealt with a lot of that. So tell me where you really stand, and when does it work for cooperation? When does it work for actual work?
Pa ja smatram da danas nije problem u tome da će jedna zemlja napasti drugu. To je manje vjerojatno. Sada su problemi drugi. Oni se tako prezentiraju.
I'm going to interrupt you for just 1 second because we're not hearing translation. So, are you hearing translation? No. Okay. Let's just wait 1 second and test the translation again. Okay. Okay. All right. The translator, I'm going to ask you to please repeat. Yeah. Yeah. Let's start again. Let's start again. Tell us what the president said. Did you lose translation again? Yeah. Okay, we lost translation again. Okay. Let's try now. So we don't think that countries will attack each other then? Oh, the challenges.
There's a problem of Europe, because in Europe we do not understand each other. So the only European language is translation. Yes. And we have 24 official languages inside EU, so that's a complicated.
Okay, so while we figure out the translation, this are we trying? It's okay? I'm not hearing translation. Are you hearing translation? No. Okay, I hear someone. Okay.
A ja smatram u stvari da se radi o današnjem svijetu, o dominaciji. Kako?
Maybe it's better if the interpreter is here.
Why do you fix it? I know. I was hearing it fine, and then it disappeared. Okay. So we're still trying or what? Okay. Sorry.
Radi se o stvari o dominaciji. Svojevremeno imali smo pokušaje izvoza revolucije i znamo kako su ti izvozi završavali. Danas imamo izvoz izvoz demokracije. A u stvari sve je to zavaravanje. Radi se o tome kako kontrolirati i kako dominirati na energetskom planu. Tko će vladati energentima? A onda se to zaokuplja, tobože, da se izvozi demokracija. Vidimo kako je taj izvoz demokracije završio u Egiptu, kako je završio izvoz demokracije u Libiji, kako se razvija izvoz demokracije u Siriji. A o čemu se radi? Tamo gdje jedna država ima energente, ima gas, ima naftu, ona je ugrožena da će biti da je uvezena demokracija, da drugi ima pravo uspostaviti režim, ali koji režim? Koji će dozvoliti eksploataciju njenih energenata? Smatram da u stvari nitko nema pravo nikome nametati režim. Svaki narod mora riješiti sam pitanje svoga režima. Ako je nezadovoljan, postoje mehanizmi na koji se način to treba riješiti. Ali u svakom slučaju ne ovo što mi danas doživljavamo. Da se to može za uspostavu demokracije u jednoj zemlji razara čitav sustav jedne zemlje koji uopće više ne funkcionira. A rezultat je da je neko preuzeo izvore energenata. To je, meni se čini, danas glavni uzrok uz krizu, financijsku krizu, glavni uzrok je pitanje kontrole energenata. Kako će to završavati, to ćemo tek vidjeti. Ali evo vidimo sada u Siriji. Što se u Siriji događa? Na jednoj strani imate radikale skupljenih iz svih mogućih zemalja, a na drugoj strani imate režim koji se održava. Na jednoj strani imate, dakle, one koji smatraju da oni moraju donijeti nekome promjenu režima, ali to ne donosi nikom koristi.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go to the questions. Do you have a microphone? Please introduce yourself, tell us who you are. Try to keep the questions brief. We're going to go over all the questions at once, okay? And then we'll answer them up here to stay on time here. Yes.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Abdelhakim Mattar, étudiant à l'ESC à Rabat. Ma question est la suivante. Si le sujet de débat est les marchés, les politiques, la politique ou l'économie, qui prend une décision, en tant que jeune, je ne comprends pas vraiment qui prend une décision. Prenons par exemple l'exemple du Maroc, le cas des libres-échanges. Comment peut-on accepter, ou personne qui prend une étude logique peut accepter un tel accord où le Maroc est vraiment défavorable? Est-ce qu'il s'agit vraiment des amis ou des alliés des pays amis qui veulent notre développement, ou il s'agit vraiment des pays qui veulent toujours garder la puissance et garder le pouvoir? C'est ma question. Merci.
That's a great question, I think, and I'd like someone here to volunteer to answer it before we move on. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oui. Madame, tout d'abord, je devrais réagir au propos du président qui vient de dire tout de suite, tout à l'heure. Moi, je crois qu'il a des principes encore dans l'exercice du pouvoir et dans les rêves des jeunes, des rêves des hommes et des femmes politiques. Et on ne peut pas condamner le peuple de vivre avec des dictateurs. Et chaque intervention, je ne parle pas d'intervention militaire, mais où chaque soulèvement est lié à l'exploitation des ressources énergétiques. Ça, ce n'est pas mon interprétation de l'histoire contemporaine et ancienne, et ce n'est pas ce qui me motive en politique. Et voilà, ça c'est l'exemple que le jeune étudiant vient d'évoquer, l'accord de libre-échange avec le Maroc. Il y a un effort win-win. Le Maroc veut entrer dans la scène internationale, économique internationale. Dans ce monde globalisé, il faut avoir des alliés, il faut avoir des partenaires. Et pour l'Union européenne, il est très important d'élargir aussi son marché intérieur. Alors, pour nous, nous avons intérêt d'avoir des voisins et avec lesquels on a un accord commercial. Et le Maroc a tout intérêt d'avoir les débouchés du marché européen. C'est un accord positif et profitable pour les deux côtés. Alors, c'est au Maroc d'être compétitif, de correspondre aux normes européennes, internationales, de la qualité, de protection de l'environnement, tout ça, pour pouvoir trouver et gagner une place dans le marché européen. Voilà, ce sont des débouchés. Il ne faut pas toujours voir des secrets, de complexité plus qu'il y en a dans le monde.
Thank you very much. Did that answer your question? Yes? Was that good? Did that answer your question? Does he want to follow up? Let him follow up. And then we come to you. Yes, just 1 second. No, 1 second. 1 second. Une seconde, s'il vous plaît. Une seconde. Yeah? Yes.
C'est vrai qu'il s'agit d'une façon pour entrer au marché européen, mais à quel prix? Si on prend la balance commerciale du Maroc, qui est vachement déficitaire dans l'accord de libre-échange, je ne vois pas où il y a l'intérêt au Maroc, à part s'il s'agit d'une façon pour gagner plus pour les Européens. Excusez-moi si ma façon est laquelle, mais je ne comprends pas.
Voilà. Est-ce que je dois répondre? D'accord, voilà. On focalise la question, mais elle est une question significative. Vous avez une balance déficitaire avec les Européens. Vous voulez la garder ou vous cherchez des perspectives pour l'améliorer? Et voilà, un marché s'ouvre devant vous. Devenez compétitif, produisez plus de high-tech, des marchés compétitifs. Vous avez des marchés difficiles et exigeants en Europe. Vous ne sentez pas que vous pouvez être à l'auteur? Vous savez que quand nous les Européens, on donne des privilèges aux Marocains, aux Tunisiens d'entrer au marché européen, nous avons aussi nos soucis. Parce que les agriculteurs de l'Europe du Sud se font des soucis.
Et pourtant, vous faites des quotas.
Et pourtant, ils se font des soucis. Et pourtant, nous avons voté, c'est-à-dire ceux que nous avons votés, la plupart au Parlement européen, pour l'accord de libre-échange, pour l'accord bilatéral agricole, pour permettre au Maroc, ayant l'aide financière aussi de l'Union européenne, pour améliorer sa machine de production, d'administration, d'éducation, etc., pour pouvoir entrer dans le marché compétitif d'aujourd'hui. Voyez ce que font les Chinois, ce que font les autres pays dans l'Asie, le niveau de production qu'ils ont, de recherche, des fonds qu'ils investissent en recherche, en technologie. Alors, vous avez l'aide de l'Union européenne pour améliorer votre standing, votre qualité, et vous avez des marchés. Alors voilà, entrez en confiance dans ce monde globalisé. Nous avons besoin de vous et vous de nous dans la région euroméditerranéenne pour pouvoir mieux peser dans le monde globalisé d'aujourd'hui et durement compétitif. Attrapez l'occasion avec confiance en votre pays, en votre jeunesse.
Merci. Madame, vous avez parlé d'agriculture. Alors pourquoi l'Union européenne...
Je ne sais pas si on doit faire...
No, it's okay. Finish your thought.
Vous avez parlé d'agriculture. Je ne sais pas pourquoi l'Union européenne, elle pratique le système des quotas au niveau des exports de notre agriculture. Est-ce que vous aussi, vous n'avez pas confiance en votre agriculture? Et je m'excuse pour...
No, I don't think you should apologize. I think this is why we're here. Mr. Svoboda wants to answer. Go ahead.
The Czech experience, my dear friends. So maybe we were not in the same but similar position when we joined EU. So we decided to say yes to the euro arrangement, to joining EU, to be in club. And it was a very tough job at the very beginning. We have to do a lot. We have to be very disciplined. We have to transform everything. That was our duty at the very beginning. So this is the chance. So your country could reject everything. Your country could say, no, we have no interest in having any agreement with the EU because you are free. But that's a challenge, not to be concentrated on present time, because maybe today is very difficult. But there's a great potential of the growth, and I believe that you are capable of meeting the criteria and being successful.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Yes?
Jawad Kardoudi, je suis président de l'Institut marocain des relations internationales et je voudrais dire que je suis d'accord avec la plupart des panélistes quand ils ont dit qu'il faut effectivement des solutions globales parce qu'avec la mondialisation, il y a une interdépendance entre tous les pays. Je pense que cela, tout le monde est d'accord là-dessus. D'où une réforme des institutions internationales. On en a déjà parlé, il faut absolument réformer l'ONU. L'ONU ne peut pas continuer avec un Conseil de sécurité qui date de la Seconde Guerre mondiale. Donc, il faut absolument réformer l'ONU pour tout ce qui est politique. Pour ce qui est économique, moi j'estime que le G20 a joué un rôle efficace pour sauver le système financier international. Le système financier international, après la crise de 2008, il y avait une crise systémique et le G20 l'a sauvé. Maintenant, le G20 n'est pas légitime parce qu'il ne représente que 20 pays. Alors ma question que je pose aux panélistes, ne pensez-vous pas que le FMI pourrait jouer ce rôle sur le plan économique en élargissant ses prérogatives qui ne sont pas assez importantes parce que le FMI, lui, représente pratiquement tous les pays. Merci.
Mr. Prime Minister?
Well, on the first question, I don't think it's any reason for debating it. I agree with you. Several efforts have been made back when both of us were in the European Council. My Czech colleague and I, we tried to reform the United Nations, and some reforms were accepted. Kofi Annan, in the second term, made a considerable effort. So I just agree with that. There's no difference between us. On the IMF, today, my country just, thankfully, we come out of the 3-year agreement where we were, 3-year bailout agreement where we're with the IMF, the European Union, and the European Central Bank. Our experience has been, I think the IMF are well positioned and well qualified, and I think well up for the task of dealing with the issues. They're not easy, and they're not easy for the IMF, and they're not easy for individual countries, and we all have our takes on this. But at least in our case, our government were able to negotiate, and the same has happened with Greece and other countries. It's been hard and austerity measures on our people. But I think the IMF as a financial institution and a financial regulator, I mean, to deal with some of the crucial issues that are in front of us, like the errors that were made in the individual banks and the individual difficulties that arose over the years. European countries having to deal with their regulatory systems, and people having to deal with the balance sheets of their banks and take control of their own positions. And these are issues I believe the IMF are well competent. It's always an evolving situation, and I would say in fairness to the IMF, though they wouldn't always be my friends, though I was on the Board of Governors a long time ago and as a finance minister, I think they always would look at changing and reviewing their positions as well. But I think as an organisation who are capable of assisting in the problems, they certainly are. I would mention, just in the case of the 2008 financial crisis, the IMF or none of the other international institutions a month earlier seen it coming. But that's a different issue, which we better not get into.
Yeah, we need another session for that. There was a question in the back. Let's get that real quick. On this side, let me know if we have questions. I'm going to pick now. Okay, we're going to go to you and to you. Okay, so.
Hi.
Please stand up and tell us who you are. Thank you.
Here I am. So, Faisal Odbib from École Hassaniya Travaux Publics. I don't know how to translate that to English exactly, so I am an engineer, basically. My question, I have two questions, actually, but I would first thank you all for the conversation. First one is, I see that the question is, who makes the decision? And I had the impression that actually we didn't precisely answer it. So I would challenge every one of the four nice people there to give us a short answer to it, if any. Okay. Second question is, should we go back by the state we are in nowadays in the global economy to some economical protectionism, as would Frederick List or Emmanuel Todd describe it? Isn't it the time for countries to be able to decide for their monetary policies, for example, and such? I would stop there, I think. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Great questions. Let's take the question here, and then we're going to go to the gentleman right here. Yeah. Make sure you tell her. Yes, go ahead.
Bonjour, je me présente tout d'abord, Nfour Hamza, étudiant en 4e année à l'Institut de Kinitra. Ma question est la suivante. Comment peut-on intégrer les jeunes dans l'élaboration des stratégies pour défendre la crise mondiale Le deuxième volet de la question est, peut-on considérer que la démocratie comme étant une solution efficace de la crise mondiale? Et merci.
Okay, the last question, let's hear it.
Hello, I'm Malik Hamza, student at LISCAE. Your panel talked about international cooperation. My question is how to make this international cooperation effective, taking on consideration the cultural differences between the nations, the difference between objectives and politics. How to make this international cooperation effective? Thank you.
Great. I'm going to let each one of you pick one of these questions to answer, and I'd like us to end with that great question, the challenge for all of you. Yes.
Well, if I can take on the challenge of who runs, who makes the decisions. I don't think there's any simple way that the governments can just say governments make the decision, or markets make the decisions, or economics makes the decisions. Like, governments can change the laws, they can change the tax laws, they can decide what borrowings are going to be there. So governments are all powerful in certain areas. But if the markets believe that your country is doing unsustainable things, they can put pressure on you to change, and that's what happened in 2008 when bond yields changed. So economists, well, I have a different view of them because they have an answer for everything and they change every day. But I think between markets and governments, it depends which categories, so it's not a straight answer. On the issue of protectionism, I think it's a very good and important question, because after every financial crisis for the last few hundred years, protectionism grows. And I read recently the Director General of the World Trade Organization saying that world growth next year would fall by 0.5% because protectionism is growing. I give you my stake on that. I think that would be a disaster. I think going back into protectionism. I come from a country that exports 84% of everything we make and produce. So you'd see where I'm coming from. We could close up if we were into protectionism. So, but I don't see where protectionism is good for many people. I believe that trade, I agree with my colleague, I believe that trade and making the necessary productivity arrangements and making yourself efficient. Of course, at times you hit crises, but by and large, it serves the public well. And may I say to the moderator, I think it serves young people well because the future is always in innovative ideas. It's in new investment and new thinking. And young people are big beneficiaries of that. And I think that applies in practically every country in the world I know of.
Yes?
My answer to your questions. I do agree protectionism is not the way. Please, if you know the European experience, just when Europe sticks together, just if Europe is ready to cooperate. So Europe was successful or has been successful. So that's the story. So please, protectionism is not the way. But the question of democracy, look, from my point of view, the democracy is the strongest system. Why? Because the democracy is open to the opposition. And if you need a profound change, you need a well-prepared political force to come to power. The problem in some countries which are now affected by the Arab Spring, they have the problem that the problem is that in their countries they are not well-functioning opposition. And we need well-functioning opposition. So if you have strong opposition, you are strong. And if you have no opposition, political opposition, you are terribly weak. So that's very important. And the problem of different cultures and the religions. So today it's a hot potato, but I try to teach my students to understand, for example, to understand Islam. We need to understand. The problem is not in the religion. The problem is that some people are using religion as the instrument for the political fight. Quran is a peaceful story. Islam is well-functioning and very profitable style of thinking. But so we in Europe, we are fearing because we do not understand. So the problem is not in the religion. Please be sure that we, so in the Diplomatic Academy in Prague, and I'm trying to convince my students that we have to feel full respect for every single religion in the world.
Voilà. Alors, tout d'abord, il y a la question qui décide, qui a été clairement adressée à nous. Au niveau des décisions politiques, nous avons beaucoup parlé de ce monde globalisé qui vous fait peur peut-être. Je vois des jeunes ici prêts à comprendre le fonctionnement du monde. Le monde globalisé est plus complexe et plus exigeant. Nous oblige d'être plus responsables et plus compétitifs. Ça, c'est sûr. Mais il nous donne beaucoup de possibilités. Imaginez vous-même dans le Maroc fermé ou dans un Maroc à porte ouverte avec des partenariats faisant partie du monde global. Alors, le pouvoir se partage, mais la responsabilité aussi et les perspectives augmentent. De l'autre côté, entre les politiques et l'économique qui décident, il ne faut pas les opposer. Les deux ensemble doivent trouver l'équilibre. Une bonne régulation pour donner le potentiel, pour donner la perspective au potentiel économique, au marché financier de jouer leur rôle. Nous avons besoin du marché. Ce n'est pas l'opposé de la démocratie, de la morale, des valeurs, du politique. La politique et l'économique doivent avancer dans une voie plus équilibrée, mieux régulée, et comme la crise nous amène aujourd'hui à trouver. De l'autre côté, on a besoin d'une démocratie pour faire tout ça. Il a été évoqué la participation de jeunes. Voilà, c'est seulement une démocratie qui permet la participation de jeunes, la participation de toutes les minorités, le respect des différences culturelles, religieuses. Et pour cela, nous assistons vraiment à tous ces mouvements, à toutes ces aspirations de jeunes qui exigent de leur pays, de leurs leaders, de leurs partenaires, je prends la responsabilité en tant que femme politique européenne, de vous assister à mettre les fondements d'une société et d'une économie plus démocratique et plus compétitive. Merci.
Can you talk a little bit about the youth and their role in the global crisis, in resolving the global crisis? I think we always talk to the youth. Vous n'entendez pas. D'accord. Should I ask the question in French? No, you can't. No. Vous voulez que je vous demande en français? No? D'accord. So, any translation yet? Can you hear me now? Yes? No? Maybe? No. Yes? Maybe. Okay. We are coming to the end of this panel discussion, so I really want to end it on a high note. And I wanted to end it, bless you, I wanted to end it on the youth. To me, youth are the key. I've always said this all my life. You know, I'm not going to change. When I was young, I thought I held the key. I tried to change things. I still believe, and I'll die believing that the youth are the key. And I like the question, because we always think about finding solutions for the young. Oh, you know, this is what you need to do. This is what... That was a very good question. How do we involve the youth in solving the problem? Is that something we can even fathom at this point? And we don't have much time, so please try to keep it brief.
Ja bih prije svega vratio se na ovu temu, globalizirani svijet. Mi živimo u njemu, on ima svoje pozitivne efekte, ali globalizacija donosi i negativne efekte. Radi se samo o tome kako eliminirati negativne efekte. To je pitanje. A ovdje smo čuli i nekoliko prijedloga. Da li Međunarodni monetarni fond može ispuniti svoju ulogu time da dobije veće ingerencije ili treba reformirati Ujedinjene nacije? Ujedinjene nacije stvorene su 1945. kada je bila sasvim druga svjetska situacija. Danas Ujedinjene nacije treba reformirati na taj način da budu efikasnije, da preventivno djeluju i da do sukoba ne dolazi. Jer što sada rade Ujedinjene nacije? One, kad dođe do sukoba, gledaju da se taj sukob što prije završi i da se onda u postkonfliktnoj situaciji rješava problem. Treba ga rješavati prije nego je došlo do konflikta. Ja vam to kažem iz mog iskustva, bio sam zadnji predsjednik Jugoslavenske federacije, bio sam 10 godina na čelu Hrvatske, kada smo bili sasvim sigurni da se na prostoru bivše Jugoslavije sprema jedan brutalan rat. Ja sam išao u Ujedinjene nacije i rekao sam, to je rat za teritorij. Mi tražimo od Ujedinjenih nacija samo da pošalju na granicu između Hrvatske i Srbije i Bosne i Hercegovine i Srbije simbolične snage, samo kao, da tako kažemo, simbol da se ne smije prelaziti granica. da tražimo političko rješenje. Nažalost, Ujedinjene nacije su rekle mi reagiramo samo onda kada je do konflikta došlo. Dakle, treba u Ujedinjenim nacijama stvari mijenjati. A što se tiče mladih, oni će naći svoje mjesto, oni će se i izorganizirati, ali onaj ko donosi odluke, a to je vlada, to je parlament, mora stvoriti takvu regulativu da mladi imaju motiv za djelovanje. Jer ako nema motiva, ni mladi ni stariji neće djelovati.
Cyril, pick up on that.
So why young people? Maybe because they are more flexible, they are not corrupted, they are not manipulated, they have maybe some dreams, because it's very important to have a dream. And to what extent they are capable of being totally free, they are welcome. So I'm not deeply convinced that just the young people are the solution. But my experience is that those who have been so long in the politics, so they have made so many compromises, so they have made so many mistakes, that sometimes they lose some of their independence or liberty. So that's the motivation for young people to be a permanent pressure that all of us, we have to have a dream, and we have to be independent and free, and to respect democracy and to respect the opinion of all the other people around us.
And quickly, can we really answer the question, who makes the decisions, markets, politics,
yes.
or economics? Or
you know, so still I'm avoiding the answer, because, you know, I don't know the answer.
Right.
So my answer is that there are the ad hoc coalition, so the ad hoc economic coalition, ad hoc regional coalition, because so I tried all the time to avoid the answer, because really I don't know the answer.
Right. You did answer that one. Tell us about the youth and their role in solving. Do you think there might be a chance of getting the youth involved in solving the problem, not just being the recipients? Oh, no. Yeah.
Vous savez, moi, je vois beaucoup de possibilités pour les jeunes d'être impliqués au processus. Et c'est pour ça que j'ai défendu la démocratie. Parce que c'est les seules conditions qui vous permettent d'agir librement, avec liberté et responsabilité, de faire des rêves pour votre pays, de critiquer, de faire pression aux hommes et aux femmes politiques et de se sentir utile pour votre pays. Et ça, c'est là la responsabilité et l'essence de l'action commence, d'avoir la possibilité de se sentir utile. Et je vois au Maroc vraiment une perspective s'ouvrir, et soyez sûrs de l'appui et de la confiance de l'Union européenne pour la jeunesse marocaine. Merci.
Both, but very briefly if you can.
In my country, all political movements involve actively young people in policy formulation through second level and through third level, and those who are left education. And I think it benefits, particularly in recent years where times have been difficult, where there's been harsh measures, because I think the young people have to see that there's a future for them. And it's been a difficult time with high immigration and job losses and high unemployment. And I think young people have given a confidence to the whole political system, because they want to see the problems solved. They want to see corrections, no matter how difficult they are, because they want to see a better tomorrow. And I think any political movement in any country, whether government or opposition, as they change and reverse, is wise to involve young people in the political process.
Thank you very much. Fascinating discussion, I have to say. Fascinating audience. I thank you very, very much for participating, asking questions, being here, joining us, engaging us. I hope that you will leave here richer. I certainly will. Thank you very much for the panel and the audience. Thank you.